because it slammed into the coastline with 150-mile-an-hour sustained winds as a Category 4. Hurricane Ida has demolished buildings already and caused plenty of flooding along the coastline. We are told that even though it will diminish as it goes into inland, as hurricanes do, that they are still getting wind gusts between 100 and 150 miles an hour, and again, sending down power lines, destroying homes. At this moment, more than 400,000 people in the state of Louisiana are without power, and that number is expected to rise as Ida continues to go through Louisiana and then through Mississippi. In fact, right now, there are tornado warnings throughout the state of Louisiana, and they stretch as far as Mississippi, Alabama, even Florida. That's the scope of how large Ida is right now as a Category 4. In terms of damage, we are told that they expect somewhere between 900 to 1 million homes to be in the path of Ida, and the expected total of damage is supposed to be somewhere around the $200 to $220 billion range. Make that in comparison to Katrina, which made landfall as a Category 3 16 years ago. And Katrina's damage was by far one of the most expensive in this country, and Katrina was at $150 billion.
Let's talk a little bit about what has changed since 2005 when Hurricane Katrina devastated that area. So some infrastructure is better. They built levees better and higher. Fewer people live along the most vulnerable areas of the coastline. What's different now?
Well, as you mentioned, hundreds of thousands of people after Katrina fled and went to other municipalities. 150,000 came to Houston. I think nearly 100,000 went to Atlanta, Baton Rouge, places further north. So yes, the population is much more sparse along the coastline, but New Orleans is still technically a major city, and Baton Rouge, only 85 miles north, is also a major city. So you still have hundreds of thousands of people there. And because Hurricane Ida was a Category 2 storm yesterday, and within 24 hours it transformed into a Category 4 storm, you had a lot of people not prepared to evacuate. Even though there were mandatory evacuations along the coastline, there were only voluntary evacuations in this city of New Orleans as well as throughout the state of Louisiana, because both the city and state did not have time to do contraflow, which is when you take all of the highways and roadways and reverse them so it's only as an exit. So that's why the mayor of New Orleans said everyone needs to shelter in place, stay there, do not go out, because hurricanes don't just last the moment that the hurricane slams into shore. It's going to be 24 to 48 hours before all of this settles, the storm surge, the flooding, the tornadoes, the wind damage, and then search and recovery becomes the major part after a hurricane. The actual impact of the hurricane happens right away, which everyone looks at, but then search and rescue takes time to go look for people that are stranded. Unfortunately, fatalities. In Katrina, 1,800 people died. So the unfortunate part of a hurricane is the likelihood is there will be fatalities. Hopefully not as bad as Katrina, though.
Yeah, it's tough.
Tens of thousands of residents along the coast of Louisiana and Mississippi have been mandatorily evacuated. Another 400,000 people live actually in the city of New Orleans, and we're told that the voluntary evacuations have been going on since yesterday. And as you know, Hurricane Ida was at a Category 2 yesterday, so it intensified to a Category 4 within just a 24-hour period with sustained winds of 150 miles an hour. So that is a concern for any resident, not just along the coast, but as you mentioned earlier and Eunice mentioned, the storm surge. During Katrina, the storm surge went in far, 30, 40, 50 miles in. They're expecting that the heavy rains and the storm surge will go in definitely a similar amount. And in fact, they're preparing in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which is about 85 miles north of New Orleans. So that goes to show you the intensity of this hurricane, the worry it has for people, because this is a populated area, both New Orleans and Baton Rouge. And you may recall last year with Hurricane Laura, it hit Louisiana, but in a more rural area west of New Orleans and in East Texas. So when you're talking about a high concentration of population, that is definitely a concern for not just local officials, but for state officials as well.
If there's a problem with this, call me back. given me every single